Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole of Fernie City Council held at 6:30 p.m. on January 21st, 2025. Kisuk Yukit, we acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakut Atnukliat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakut Atnukliat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. With that, I'll call our meeting to order and ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation. For the approval of the agenda. Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. I will now ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation that the minutes of the December 17th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I will now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit, and a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. And as we have no one in the gallery, I'll check with Ms. Rhodes, and there's no one has indicated a desire to speak online. And with that, we'll move into our first item of business, AKBLG Resolutions 2025, item for discussion. And our corporate officer has shared drafts of those resolutions with council. And I'll ask the councillors, maybe starting with Councillor Hamilton, who have advanced resolutions, perhaps they can speak to them.
Certainly. Would you like to give the background again for the resolution, or would you like me prefer if I just read the resolution and we discussed it?
Yeah, I think if you read the resolution, we can discuss it.
So the resolution I have put forward is that whereas the stresses faced by local elected officials are increasing due to a degradation in the tone of civil discourse, and whereas additional mental health supports for local elected officials would be beneficial beyond what is provided by medical services plan and extended health plans, therefore be it resolved that UBCM call upon the province of British Columbia to implement initiatives that offer mental health supports tailored to the needs of local elected officials in British Columbia. Sorry, local elected leaders in British Columbia.
Thank you, Councillor. Comments from council? Yeah, I was reviewing your backgrounder this morning, Councillor, and I just highlighted a couple of things that I think are certainly sort of broadly relevant, but I appreciate they're also generally relevant for our communities as a whole, and that is reducing the stigma surrounding mental health by promoting open discussions about well-being and normalizing the pursuit of support. And this one, I think, is of particular value because I think we potentially lose sight of the breadth of people in our communities, and this notion that it would help encourage a more diverse range of individuals to run for public office, which I think is a laudable goal. So I for one, support advancing this resolution. Other comments? Councillor Shoesmith.
Well, thank you, Mayor Milligan. I'm sure a lot of citizens would agree that many of their politicians need some therapy, but at first I was positively predisposed to this, but on thinking further, I don't feel that well about electeds having access to separate reserved care of any kind. It just doesn't mesh with the ethos of the universal health care that we have in this country. So for that reason, I kind of look askance at it. I think we should have the same resources and treatment as the general population. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate that sentiment and the consideration for universal health care. Ideally, it would be fantastic if everybody could have access to enhanced mental health supports. However, I would liken this more to a benefit of the job, perhaps thinking of it as, your extended health benefits. Part and parcel of taking on a leadership role is taking on the increased mental burden. And as it says, in the background, proactively addressing mental health challenges helps prevent burnout. To what Mayor Milligan spoke about, we want to ensure that we are able to attract a diverse group of individuals to this role. Many people that I've spoken to have chosen not to run for council roles, not just in Fernie, but across the province, because it potentially means them losing their job benefits because of reduced hours or whatnot. So ensuring that those benefits exist for this role helps to attract more people.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I at first was positively predisposed to this motion, but I have changed my mind, and I'll tell you why. I think of this as a privilege, this office. Not only did I and others at this table choose to run for office, but we also competed for this role. I do think you do have to realize that you're going to face some adversity, because I mean, long before A2 Brute, discourse wasn't all that civil. And I don't mean that to be really facetious. I think mental health is really, really important, but I've spent 26 years working in welfare. And I've really witnessed people with barriers and the harsh reality of their life where they don't have basic needs met and often suffer mental health issues because of that. So I don't like, as well as Councillor Shoesmith mentioning, I don't like the separateness of it, because as public officials, we would have the option to join the benefits with the city. Yes, we'd have to pay for them, but we have to recognize that we're also paid a stipend to do this role. So we would have the wherewithal to join the benefit program if we so chose. And I think we need the province to come forward with universal care for everyone and not just a special select group of folks, right? The province right now, I can tell you there isn't enough treatment, mental health, and housing, none of those things. So I have an issue with the separateness of it. So I can't support it for that reason.
Other comments? Councillor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship, and I appreciate some of the things that Councillor Hamilton has written here. Would have supported in a different situation, but then again, like my colleagues have just discussed, we are all self-selected group of individuals who've chosen to run for office. Just having yet another mental health benefit package for councillor isn't going to really change my motivation to run for the office. I'm here to serve the people. Most importantly for me is, if we are going to AKBLG making resolutions, I kind of like to see direct benefit to the residents, the people who put us in the office. And for that reason, because this is not connected to our community and our folks, and it is very targeted towards 7 special individuals who chose to run for the office, I have difficulty supporting this. And again, I'm not trying to lighten the fact that mental health issues is real, and lots of people suffer from it. Completely appreciate that. It's just the context here is missing.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I think it's important to remember that, as I mentioned in our last meeting, this is a resolution that's coming from a group across the province. This is not specific to our situation here in Fernie. And to be perfectly frank, we are extremely fortunate when talking to colleagues, council colleagues, local elected officials from across the province in how well our community has been addressing us and the situations that we as elected officials have faced. A lot of our colleagues across the province and a lot of elected leaders across the province are not afforded the same respect, I guess, is essentially what it comes down to. So, well, I can appreciate the notion of us as a body trying to focus on things that affect our community. This situation has affected our community in the past. I'm sure it will in the future as well. But this is also for all British Columbians and all elected officials to ensure that local elected officials who, yes, they are choosing this role, but I can guarantee most people get into this role not knowing the full scope of the job. And so by ensuring that these supports exist, we ensure that we are supporting leaders to be better in their communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. So just curious about who are the co-sponsors for this resolution?
This resolution will be presented in each of the local area associations, and AKBLG, SILGA, Islands, every organization has a representative submitting this resolution.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. I'm just
Further.
continue on. I like it. I think it's good. The doctors of BC have a special mental health, support group for physicians across the province. The Law Society of British Columbia has a special team of people that deal with lawyers that have mental health issues, and I don't think this is much different. I think that this would be potentially people that understand what you're going through. It could be people that are former elected officials. It could be, that type of consultants that could talk to, current elected officials. So I like it. I like the idea of it. I want to hear what the rest of the people on the resolution floor want to say. So I would support this to hear what everybody else says as well.
Thank you. Further. I would just like to comment, I think I'd like to see it go forward as well, because a little bit to Councillor Nixon's comment, it's not necessarily about separateness. It's about tailoring to a very, in my mind, to a very specific audience, and dealing with very specific issues. So it provides a question to UBCM that they would then potentially take to the province to say, is this a viable solution to this issues? Because to your point, Councillor Hamilton, there's headlines across the province about how difficult it's become sometimes in some communities. And returning and reflecting on Councillor Audie Kelly's language, I think one of the things we need to do and need to consider, as I sort of said at the outset, is the breadth of people in our community, and are there functional barriers to people choosing to run for office? And I look around the room and I recognize we all chose to run for office, but are there people who chose not to because their worry was they wouldn't feel supported in the role? And I think to the extent possible, yeah, we want to reduce barriers to participation so that we get the best quality representative democracy that we can at this scale. Because there are, there are potentially marginalized groups who aren't represented around this table. So to the extent we can reduce barriers, I think, I'd be happy to advance this to AKBLG and UBCM. Yeah, sorry. Councillor Amadas.
Are there functional barriers? Like that's the part I struggle with. I don't think there are too many barriers. I mean, some of us are good examples here. We chose to run for it, and the process of actually filing for nomination, going out and getting votes, talking to community was super simple. It was all self-directed. If people choose to run for this, they will figure it out. In fact, last election, there were like 16, 17 people who were standing at the forum. So I kind of struggle with the notion that there is a functional barrier to run for public office in local government level.
Yeah, and I would just respond because I made that comment is I am not an expert, so I don't know. So adding sort of tools to the toolbox actually helps answer those questions. And maybe when it comes to the floor at UBCM, it's deemed not necessary, but I think it's worth exploring. Councillor McIsaac and then Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to point out that in our, it's not away from here. In our last term, we had a councillor who chose not to run again, specifically because of mental anguish faced by the treatment of themselves in the community, period. It's not hypothetical, actually happened. So it's real. And, to speak to what Councillor Nixon said, it's not unusual for specific groups that face specific issues to have specific treatments. That's not unusual. In fact, that's the norm.
Mm-hmm.
So like you, I'm not so much want to push this as I want to hear the discussion. I think it helps, if nothing else, raise awareness of the issue and the fact that we actually care about it, which is a big part of the support that encourages people to come forward. Councillor Ramadas is not incorrect. We had a flurry of people who showed up last time to run for this office. And I think that reflects the fact that in general, the treatment here is quite good. There are exceptions, but in general it is. There are other communities, they struggle to get anyone to run. This is not the only barrier. Financial issues are barriers. Racism is a barrier, all kinds of things, but this is one. And it's one that I think is worth having the discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Yeah, just to reiterate the point that yourself and Councillor McIsaac made, I'm putting this forward to bring it to so that it gets onto the list at AKBLG so that we can have a broader, more fulsome discussion in the broader community of elected officials and advocacy. What do we choose as elected officials as subjects that we feel are important in our region to advocate to the province?
Thank you. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think Councillor Hamilton might have just answered my question, but Councillor Hamilton, if I maybe misunderstood you, I thought this was already going to go to all of the associations.
No, through the process is that it goes through a local community, needs to have a resolution to be brought to the area association. I put my name forward to bring it through for AKBLG. I've reached out to a couple other communities to also bring it through in the AKBLG area, but that's the goal here.
Thank you. And turning to our corporate officer, because we don't have a resolution here, but we do have a placekeeper to bring these resolutions back to a regular meeting for advancing them. Thank you. Okay, with that, I think we'll stop the discussion on this one and move on to the next resolution. And I'll turn to Councillor Nixon and perhaps get him to read it, and because it wasn't discussed last time, maybe a little bit of the background.
There's a lot of whereas, your worship. Can I cross some of those out?
Would you like
Um,
would you like a
sure.
glass of water?
Yeah, I have one here. Okay, so I'll read it right now. Whereas British Columbians in high-risk areas increasingly face challenges in obtaining affordable home insurance due to the rising frequency and severity of natural disasters linked to climate change, including wildfires, floods, and extreme weather events. And whereas the lack of accessible and affordable home insurance places undue financial strain on residents, increases economic inequality, and hampers community resilience. And whereas other Canadian examples, such as the MIABC, oh, I should have read that part out maybe. I was trying to shortcut, have demonstrated the viability of cooperative member-owned insurance models in addressing gaps in the private insurance market and providing tailored cost-effective solutions for municipalities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Association of Kootenay-Boundary Local Government, the Association of Kootenay AKBLG, urge the province of British Columbia to establish a provincially backed insurance company to provide affordable home insurance options to residents who are unable to secure coverage in the private market. And be it further resolved that this provincially backed insurance company be mandated to mitigate the financial impacts of climate change on homeowners by implementing sustainable practices, offering fair and equitable rates, and utilizing reinsurance strategies to spread and reduce risk. And be it further resolved that the insurance company work in collaboration with local governments, Indigenous communities, and other stakeholders to prioritize resilience building measures such as funding for disaster mitigation and adaptation initiatives to reduce risks and stabilize insurance costs over the long term. So my background was last week, and I just started thinking about this whole thing and the wildfires in Los Angeles, the state-backed insurance company called Citizens out of Florida, and the exclusion of people from wildfire and fire insurance. And I just thought, you know, how could we bring this to, you know, the rest of British Columbia and insulate ourselves from the shocks of climate change we're going to see increasing rates throughout Canada and the US. So that's the background for this from me.
Yeah, including, as you've said in your background, or a refusal to provide insurance in certain circumstances. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. It's quite the mouthful. I like it. Quick question, Councillor Nixon. The idea is that this will function alongside the private insurance? Like people can still shop and such?
Well, I think it would be better if they didn't, but yeah, I suppose they could.
All right, thanks.
Councillor Audie Kelly and then Councillor McIsaac.
Well, we do have the Insurance Corporation of BC and some also private options. And I mean, I guess the mechanics of it would be something that you would work out. I like the idea that it would possibly prevent people from being unable to get insurance. I mean, the mechanics of what it would look like would be a longer conversation.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac and then Councillor Ramdas.
Thank you, Worship. Bearing in mind here that this was just some quick reading, I am certainly not an expert in the insurance industry or California's insurance or whatever, but so in California, they have a FAIR program, which is their last resort insurance by the state for people who live in areas where they're now no longer able to receive fire coverage or flood coverage and so on. When I looked earlier, about 3% of the residents of California used the FAIR program. So 97% are still on some form of commercial insurance or have no insurance. I don't know what the breakdown is for that, of course. But I do think in British Columbia that we face a lot of the same issues that they have in California, where we have segments of our population which are at much higher risk for natural catastrophes and so on than others. And it seems, based on reading from the insurance industry over the last few years, some of these people, you know, after there's been burnouts in their area several times, at some point, the insurance company is just going to say,
Mhm.
sorry, we're just not going to insure you anymore. And yeah, an insurer of last resort, I think would be something that would be valuable for those people. And, you know, as Councilor Nixon said, that's not going to be less people over time, it's going to be more. To speak to the point about the more rather than less, I mean, the nature of insurance is such that the larger the pool, the more efficient it becomes. So there is a lot of value in directing people there. But I just wanted to give the California comparison as I had.
Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think Councillor McIsaac stole my thunder. I was
Mhm.
about to say something similar there. It's again, at the end of the day, it comes down to risk pooling, right? I think where California is heading and where many of the American states are heading is this insurer of the last resort seems to be missing in action because the claims are so large
Mhm.
and the catastrophes are like so significant these days that it's just not enough resources to go and insure the insurers, like, you know, your
Yeah.
reinsurance companies and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's the background there. And I commend Councillor Nixon for the ambition shown here. It's an ambitious resolution. While me personally, like being a, I don't know, small government conservative, like I'm just imagining some bureaucrat sitting in Victoria, you know, going through claims from communities and saying yay or nay. That's not my preference. But given that, you know, it is going to be an ongoing struggle in many of the communities. Like just our previous year's large catastrophes in British Columbia
Mhm.
itself was
Yeah.
testimony to that fact that these things are going to get more and more bad. So yeah, I think I commend the ambition here, and yeah, we should support this.
Thank you. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Yeah, as a small government kind of guy myself, kind of libertarian leaning, generally I dislike when the government does a ton of things, but I really, really dislike insurance agencies. I think they're about the worst organizations on the planet sometimes. I think that adding another, hey, I didn't name any of them. I didn't name an insurance agency. I mean, I guess they could class action. Anyways, I don't have any money, so I'm not worried about that. I think that adding another player to the market, particularly one with a different incentive structure, I think can only be a good thing. And I commend this idea and would like to see it move forward.
Thank you. And Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. My comment is less around the intent behind the resolution, more the functionality of the resolution. And I think before we pass it and take it to KBLG, we just need to tighten the language up in it a little bit. Fewer whereas clauses and so be it clauses would be beneficial.
Well, it begs the question, do we workshop it here or do we tighten it up and bring it back for the?
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. No, I appreciate as you're on the resolutions committee, it probably is wise that we tighten it up. It's probably a fair flag. And I also appreciate, I like the way Councillor Ramirez put that, the ambition of this resolution and the notion that insurer of last resort, that language. Yeah, I think that's because there will people who will be literally left out in the cold if there isn't a last resort. So I appreciate bringing this forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is the thing about MIBC, right? It's the 99.8% or 9% of all municipalities across British Columbia belong to this. It's a general tool. It's a large amount of money, and it pays out.
Yeah.
Right? So the more people that are part of this, if whatever it's going to be called in the future, the better. So
yeah. Councillor Shoesmith, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Audia Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Milligan. I was just going to suggest that since we're not voting on this right now, it's entirely fine to brush it up and whatnot before we vote on it at the next meeting.
Exactly right. Councillor Audia Kelly.
I just wanted to say for Councillor Nixon,
MIABC is Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia.
For those listening at home. Thank you. Good discussion. I very much appreciate it. With that, I have to dig out my agenda. Item 9.1, and I'll ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation, a resolution to close.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91C of the Community Charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to labour relations or other employee relations.
Mover, Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. We are going into close, so I will thank everybody for joining us this evening.